r/AskReddit by Reddition. Like and subscribe. What's the most fricked up thing you saw at a sleepover? When I was 12, we went on a family trip to Vegas. I woke up in the hotel to my parents having sex in the bed next to me. I was trapped and had nowhere to go. My mom said something along the lines of, "Stop, we are gonna wake up the kids." My dad gets up, walks over to our bed and rips the blankets off our faces and said, "See, fast asleep. I should have won an Oscar." Edit. I had no idea this would blow up. Thank you for all the love, strangers. I have no idea how this works out. So this obviously messed with me going forward. Any trips after this, I just waited my parents out. They would say small things like going to bed anytime soon, and I'm just flat out like, nope. They would fall asleep and I won. In hindsight, as an adult with kids, I do feel bad for cockblocking every future family trip. Slaps you. This bad boy can sleep 4 miles. Sleepover in friend's basement with 4 of us there. I think this was 4th grade. Sometime around midnight, the host friend's dad opened the door at the top of the basement stairs to ask if we wanted snacks, but right as the words started out of his mouth, he comes tumbling down the stairs and hit his head pretty hard. He didn't move for what felt like forever, and we heard from the top of the stairs some delirious yelling. My innocent self thought it was the host's mom, afraid because her husband just tripped and fell. My other friend later explained to me that, no, the host's mom was drunk off her ass and pushed the dad down the stairs. So yeah, I guess I witnessed a wife try to kill her husband. A friend of mine at school used to recount her side of entire conversations from the day in her sleep. Like a tape recorder. It was both weird and highly informative. I slept over a friend's house when I was around 10, and we were playing Nintendo. At some point he yelled "she," and without a word his dad comes storming into the room, pulled him up and just started spanking him in front of me, then took him out into the hallway to scold him. Then he just came back as if nothing happened, but with a red face and teary eyes. It was the most awkward, uncomfortable night of my life, having to continue on pretending to have a fun sleepover after that, but I felt so bad for him. I did my best. It was what I imagined sleeping over at Butter's house would be like. I have another sleepover story that always sticks in my mind too, but does not deserve its own post, so I'll just summarize here. Watched Aladdin at a birthday party. Woke up later that night to friend's older bro jerking off noisily in his sleeping bag with the movie paused on a scene of Jasmine. Not something I saw, but one of my friends in high school told a group of us girls at a sleepover that she'd been babysitting the previous weekend, and the girl reported to her that she was being molested by her uncle. My friend was so upset and scared to tell her parents. They were family friends and hadn't told anyone. We made her go upstairs and tell her mom. Her mom called the other family, and we basically heard both her parents sobbing off and on all night. The other parents called the cops, and as far as I recall, the uncle was arrested and spent some time in prison. My friend was really scared she'd have to speak in court, but didn't have to. My friend's older brother would get mad at her for small things, went in his room, lost the TV remote, shut her door too loudly, and proceed to beat the shit out of her, pull her hair and hold her down, and punch her in the sides, literally throw her across the room. He was almost 10 years older than us and easily had 100 to 150 pounds on her. He would eventually tire from the beatings, leave the room, and she would go back to playing with me like nothing happened. I remember being so unbelievably shocked by it, but eventually became desensitized because of how normal it seemed to her and how unfazed she was by it. Not really fricked up, but I was terrified one night. I slept over at my friend's house. I wake up in the middle of the night because I felt sick. However, my friend wasn't in his bed and both clocks were broken and stuck at some random time like 1:38 AM or something. I was convinced that time had frozen and everyone disappeared. I remember crying and being too scared to go downstairs to check the microwave clock. Eventually I went into his parents' room and woke up his parents. My friend was sleeping in his parents' bed to lol. When I was in elementary school, I got invited with my sister to a birthday party of one of her friends. Everything was going fine for most of the night, and then the catastrophe happened. Her mom came down to the basement and was clearly very upset, but didn't explain why. She then had each of us line up on the stairs from the basement to the ground level of the house and brought us in one by one. I wasn't the first in line, but no one was telling us what happened once it was their turn. Finally I was up, and her mom took me into the bathroom and showed me a trash can with a poop in it. She was basically on the verge of tears, pointing to the trash can and asking me, "Is this your poop? Is this your poop?" It wasn't. We never found out whose it was, or at least I wasn't told. We have joked that someone will finally come forward on their deathbed, but my sister and I have since lost contact with those girls, so we may never know. One time I was at a friend's house for a sleepover, and he and another friend held me down on the couch and tried to light my hair on fire with lighters. I managed to break free and ran upstairs and asked my friend's mom to let me use the phone. Mom came promptly to pick me up. Needless to say, I was not on speaking terms with the other two again. I was 13 to 14 and staying the night at a friend's house with two other girls when we were woken up by a loud popping noise from her brother's room. Naturally, 4 curious girls went to see what the hell he was doing at 3 in the morning. Her mom came running up the stairs about the time we entered his room and quickly herded us back out of his room in hysterics. It took my brain forever to register that he had shot himself in the chest. Luckily he survived, and I never had another sleepover at someone else's house again. Plenty of nightmares though. If you don't mind me asking, was it an accident or suicide attempt? He claimed accident, but he had a lot of stuff going on, so we all assumed failed suicide. We were playing hide and seek with my friend's little sister, and I went into the unlocked bathroom while loudly saying, "Where could she be? Maybe in here." The little sister was 5, we were 10, and the father was jackhammering his duck while staring at himself in the bathroom mirror and had his other hand tweaking his nipple. I left and walked home. Daffrick, he was masturbating to himself. You've gotta love yourself first. Kid who had a pee jar in his closet. It was a gallon pickle jar. If he had to pee in the middle of the night, he had to use the jar. Once his mom put us in his room for the night. We weren't allowed to leave his room until she came to get us the next morning. How did they make sure of that? The doorknob was turned around backwards so they could lock us in. Holy she my inbox. Okay, the jar was for emergency use only and was emptied and washed in the morning if he used it. Probably rarely used it, since most kids that age can hold it all night. He was a bad kid and stayed in trouble. Pretty sure the lock thing was to send him to his room and make sure he stayed there. Don't know about the parents' sexual habits, but I'm not surprised that most of Reddit immediately jumped on the drug-fueled Dodge's responses. What if there was a fire? When I was in the 6th grade, I was going to stay the night at a friend's house, but we ended up at another kid's down the street. This guy ended up talking about how he would hump his bed until there was a wet spot on his boxers. He ended up doing this while we were in the room watching TV and then showed us the wet spot. And that was how I learned how to jerk off. Same. I was so confused when I saw the wet spot in my bed after doing this. I actually ran to my parents asking them why my pee was sticky. Haha. The relationship you must have had with your parents for that interaction to not be unspeakably horrifying is enviable. I remember we did a secondary school bonding thing in our first year, where you effectively go to a summer camp for the weekend with the whole year group, about 200 11 to 12-year-olds, to get to know everyone. Sleeping arrangements were in dormitories with bunk beds, separated by gender, about 30 to a room. Lights go out in my dorm. No teachers, just 30 11 to 12-year-olds that don't know each other that well. A kid farts. Hilarious. Someone else farts, a few others. Then, I vividly remember a distinct sloppy sound followed by a panicked "oh." A kid shat himself. I would also like to note, this was not the only public pants soiling by this kid. He did it again final year during our Duke of Edinburgh Award expedition overnight whilst camping. I was sharing a tent with him. That's a whole different story. When I was around 13 to 14, a kid I invited over to my sleepover birthday party decided to strip down to his tighty whities right before cake and ice cream. Myself, my parents, friends, and relatives were mortified. Apparently it was normal behavior at his house. I had a friend whose dad had a fish tank of piranha. I really wanted to feed them a hot dog, but her dad told me they already ate. During the night I snuck down to where the fish tank was, and there was picked clean fish bones in the tank. The dad was down there watching football, and he spotted me and asked if I still wanted to feed the piranha. Being a small piranha-obsessed child, I nodded and produced the hot dog I saved from the BBQ dinner we had. It was the most terrifying and awesome thing I have ever saw. 10 out of 10 would never want to watch 3 piranha go at a hot dog ever again. Least not in person. Found my friend's older brother's anime body pillow. He had clearly did the dirty with it. His body pillow stands up on its own. 5 of us at a friend's mom's house in high school, 17/18, woke up and there were 4 of us. One of the guys there was apparently in the mom's room freaking the guy's mother. The worst part? Apparently it wasn't a new thing. The mom had been picking off her son's friends and freaking them to make her ex-husband jealous. Edit. No, I did not get a turn, but then again I didn't make a pass at her. I don't think he knew his mom was doing it. Everyone was pretty cautious to not spill the beans to him until after graduation. When he did find out, he was more disappointed in his mother than peed at his friends. Seems like a really weird family dynamic. My friend started having phone sex with her BF while we were watching a Pixar movie. I hid in the bathroom for like 20 minutes so I could convince her I was sick so I could get a ride home from my mom. We were also in junior high. When I was like 9 or 10, I spent the night at a friend's house. I knew his mom was pretty strict, but holy shit did I find out how much. He did something really minor like leave his socks in the living room and she started shouting at him like he left a turd on the floor or something. Then he peed her off again that night and she wailed on his ass so hard that it scared me. She was a psycho the way she was spanking and shouting at him. I hated her guts after that night. Edit. I have no idea how this guy turned out. We moved away soon after, and googling his common name is like looking for a John Smith. Also another guy with the same name was murdered in the same town. It wasn't him, so it's buried pretty deep. Had a friend like that. Went to his house and accidentally went in the good living room and he freaked out. I thought it was super weird, but he got the vacuum out in order to remove my footprints from the living room carpet. It was in the thick pile, not dirt or anything, but it meant you could see where I walked. For a second I thought it was funny, but he was so scared of his mom that it really freaked me out. They also had to shower sitting in their bathtub so that they wouldn't splash water everywhere. Super sad that people that crazy even have kids in the first place. The dad's mistress came over. Apparently the mother knew of her existence and it had been putting a strain on things. My buddy and I hid in the basement while the wife and mistress were screaming at each other upstairs. Shockingly did not cause a divorce. I was staying at my buddy's house when his dad showed up. His parents were separated, but divorce hadn't happened yet. Apparently mom had a new boyfriend over and somehow dad got wind. I still remember hearing him pounding on the front door and screaming while his mom and the boyfriend yelled back. Eventually the cops came and took his dad away for disturbing the peace or something like that. Same thing, we were huddled in the basement listening to all of it, and then his mom came down and acted like nothing had happened. Asked if we wanted a snack or something. I just wanted to go home. Woke up to my friend watching porn on the PS3. That happened to me once a good 9 to 10 years ago. Too bad I was the one watching. I saw porn for the first time. We were watching movies on my friend's TV and fell asleep watching. Must have been on Cinemax or something because I woke up in the middle of the night. It was a porno of man and woman in the shower. That was really awkward since I was 13 and hadn't experienced anything like that. I was too scared to turn it off because her parents were up in another room and I didn't want them to know I was awake. So I pretended to be asleep. I eventually fell back to sleep, but it took forever. The worst was her parents fighting. They would yell, curse, hit each other, and were always drunk. What's the most fricked up is I stayed there so often that it became sort of normal to me. I didn't like it, but it wasn't something I could stop. I had so many weird and inappropriate conversations with her drunk mother. Conversations about me and my friend's sex lives, or about her problems. The worst was when he shoved her into a metal pole and it bent. I didn't see it happen, but that pole was like a twisted monument to the violence that regularly took place. All the sleepovers there in my teens messed me up more than I thought. If I told my parents the whole truth of how bad it was, I don't think they would have let me sleep over. Your friend must have deeply appreciated your company though. It's awful that kids must live in situations like that. I took a bath, and when I got out my friend told her mom I had soap in my vag. I never said that, and her mom made me get back in the bath and washed my bits for me. So wrong now that I'm an adult and think about it. Wait, how old were you? Way too young. I'm gonna say between 7 or 8, no older than 9 for sure. I've never forgotten it, but it's always made me feel weird. A kid walked on the backyard monkey bars, slipped, fell, hit his chin, bit his tongue off. Girl put a massive ant in her vagina right in front of me, like it was nothing. Same girl introduced my sisters and I to the choke yourself out game where you take several deep breaths / hyperventilate and hold your breath until you pass out. Whoever fakes it had to sleep alone. Needless to say, my mom was pissed when she found us all unconscious in different areas of the bedroom. Not me, but my friend's story. She went to a sleepover at a Catholic girl's house. The girl said the word penis and her mom beat her with a belt for 15 minutes straight. She never stayed at that girl's house again. It's nothing that I saw, but more like something that happened to me. I was 13 when I stayed over at my friend's house for the night. We were up pretty late playing video games and eating snacks. I got thirsty, so me and my friend went to the fridge to get a bottle of Coke. When I opened the bottle, the soda shot straight up my face and got all over my white shirt. I asked my friend if I could shower since I was pretty sticky from the soda. Once I got out the shower, I noticed my friend and his little brother were knocked out in the living room sofas. By the way, I had no shirt on since the soda ruined mine completely. That's when their aunt came through the front door and saw me. She got close to me and started to rub her hands around my chest and shoulders. I was completely shocked and stayed still. Then my friend's brother woke up and saw what was going on. She stopped touching me right away and said, "Oh, I thought you were my nephew." Then went straight to her room and never came out until I left the next morning. Even if I were her nephew, why the hell would she touch me like that? To this day I wonder what would have happened if my friend's little brother hadn't woken up. Edit. The aunt moved away and my friend seems well adjusted and has a family of their own. I'm okay as well. That was the first and last sleepover at that place ever again. Saw my friend's parents having sex. Parents had no idea me and my friend saw them. It was a sleepover party for a friend's birthday. We were maybe 7 or 8. I was going to sleep on the floor with a sleeping bag. No worries. I wake up to her dog walking over me like a blackout drunk, smelling like piss, not responding to anything, but still walking around and bumping into everything. Parents refused to bring the dog to the vet and the birthday girl acted like it was nothing new. Basically, long story short, I watched a dog slowly succumb to a brain tumor at my friend's birthday sleepover. Not a sleepover in the traditional sense as we were both in our early 20s, but I once had a friend visiting from interstate and I let him crash at my parents to save him on accommodation costs. Trying to be a good host, I let him sleep in my bed and I slept on the floor. Woke up to the sound of this shithead wanking in my bed. Who freaking does that? Still pees me off to this day. Lol WTF. A friend of mine went to have a sleepover at his friend's House after the friend threw a baby shower. Not only was the friend's pregnant girlfriend drinking and smoking weed, but my friend said that he had to sleep on the floor and noticed things crawling along the floor. They were maggots. He ended up sleeping in his car. It was a friend's birthday slumber party, so there were quite a few of us. We were all sitting at the kitchen table, and one of the girls vomited, and then in spectacular domino fashion everyone else started to vomit too. It was really bizarre. My mom screaming at us for covering the kitchen floor with water and dish soap at 2 AM so we could go skating. At the time I really couldn't understand what she was so upset about. But, Mom, we are helping clean. Shaving cream works better. My poor parents. A kid got on the treadmill and put it as fast as it could go. He tripped and held onto the handles as his feet and legs were dragging on it. Skin was peeling off everywhere. He literally skinned his own legs. Here's me. I was the stupid kid. When I was 9, and in Girl Scouts we had a truck sleepover party that was relatively unsupervised, and at some point girls just started reaching down each other's pants and ripping their underwear out. Other girls were shoving worn socks in each other's mouths and pulling hair. I just remember sitting in a corner and guarding myself with a ping pong paddle. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for daily Reddit videos.